there, and welcome to Sit for a Spell. So today we are going to cover love magic. I went back through my previous episodes and I realized that I had completely neglected this area of magical working. And this is unfortunate because love is one of the big reasons why people want to do magic. So I've asked a special guest to join me today, my friend Lilith Dorsey, who
throwing the heart up.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's you may recognize her from our series Witchcraft and Voodoo, which we have started up again. If you haven't checked it out yet, we're back in business. And she has written a book called Love Magick, and so I thought she was the perfect expert to help us out with that. First, though, I'm going to do a brief little blurb on aphrodisiacs that actually have physical effects on the body. Aphrodisiacs that really work.
So there's been about 1 million different aphrodisiacs that different cultures have proposed. For the most part, they tend to work on the principle of sympathetic magic. So basically, if it resembles a sexual organ, it's likely to have been regarded as an aphrodisiac. And when you think about all the more commonly known stuff in our culture, like, say, strawberries or oysters, then you can definitely see the connection. Now, I'm not dissing on sympathetic magic. Obviously, I think it's a very reasonable principle when you're dealing with magic. However, why not have a little bit of science on your side too? So let's start with essential oils. There is a variety of essential oils that have measurable effects on human sexuality. It's very dependent upon your biological sex, and there's not a lot of research in this field, and even less when it comes to people who are not binary in some way, so intersex and transgender people in particular. So you may have to do a little research with both sides and figure out what works best for you. In the meantime, we do know about things that have direct effects on men and women. So let's talk about those. Now, you're going to love this particular piece of information. I thought this was absolutely fascinating. These guys here, you may notice, are all the pumpkin pie spices. We have cinnamon and ginger and clove. Can't see it very well for some reason. It's not doing a good focus. Sorry, guys. But these guys, there has been a study that indicates that when you can smell these in the air, it's good for male virility. Keeps the yang up, boys. So I thought that was fascinating. Good excuse to eat more pumpkin pie, which is one of my favorites. But you can also put these together in, say, a potpourri burner or an oil burner. Put them on in the background while you're making love. Maybe anoint your pillow. And it should improve the experience for everybody involved. Never put undiluted oils into an oil burner. A small little couple of drops in a base of water will be more than sufficient. It will prevent it from bubbling and popping in dangerous ways, and it diffuses the oil scent more effectively, and you get better bang for your buck. So, interestingly, lavender has also been known to have that same effect. This was included in the same study. So, good stuff. Also has the effect of relaxing the body and the mind, and that's also good for feminine sexuality, since relaxation is often a big part of our enjoyment level. So, more information for you. Otherwise, the stuff that tends to be good for women is the stuff that is traditionally associated with most love and sex magic. Patchouli and rose being the primary ones I know of among these particular oils. And you know, same thing. You put it on an oil burner, or maybe you put it on as a little perfume oil or something like that before you go to enjoy your experience, and everybody should have more fun. Do not use artificial oils in this department because we don't know that they have the same chemical effect. So don't buy anything that says fragrance oil on the label. Do try to get the actual essential oil. It's expensive. Rose oil in particular is really expensive. This bottle here cost me $50 like 10 years ago, and I have yet to replace it because it's, well, yeah, it's expensive and difficult to find. I'm running out, but a little goes a long, long way. So you only need a couple of drops. If you can't find this, you can often find diluted oils where it's a 10% essential oil solution in a 90% carrier oil. For our purposes, for this particular use, that's fine. They'll work just as well because it's important that you smell the scent, not important that you get the same amount of oil. So if you know, those are much more easily acquired. You can also find Rose Attar, and that will work as well as Rose Absolute because it's still the actual essential oil. It's just that this is first pressing from the petals, while Rose Attar is like second or third pressing, or from other parts of the rose plant occasionally. So, okay, so for the most part, I'm moving on to herbs. I'm going to stay away from a lot of the hormonal balance related stuff. I strongly encourage you to contact a qualified herbalist if you want to explore that avenue, and consult with your doctor, of course. Herbs are medicine. There are numerous contraindications that can happen when you take various herbs. You should always consult with your doctor. As a general rule, do not take anything unless you're absolutely certain, if you're on blood thinning medication, heart medication, or if you're pregnant. Now, moving along, stuff for the boys. Ginseng has long been held to be a good herb for male virility. There are studies that indicate that it does indeed help with that, and that it also helps with overall body health. Beware though, ladies, if you're taking a lot of ginseng for, say, you're trying to get rid of a cold or something, it can unbalance your hormones if you take too much. So something to be cautious of. Might be something worth adding as an herbal treatment, though, if you're trying to increase your androgen hormones. So something to think about. There hasn't been a lot of study on that. I can't speak to that with authority. And how you take this, ginseng is generally taken internally. You can take it as a tea, or you can take it in a tincture or a pill. There are lots of products out there available at your local herbal store. It's really all a matter of what is best for you. Now here's a wonderful little secret. Yes, that is the actual name of this herb. I believe it's an Asian herb. I had never heard of it until I went into a metaphysical store, wonderful little place called the Broom Closet in Regina when I was on my book tour. And this is Herbal Viagra. That is what it does. It's not as overwhelmingly potent as Viagra is or related medications, so it may be something you want to take if you find that medication bothersome. However, it does have similar effects. It increases your heart rate, it increases your circulation, therefore it is not recommended for people with heart conditions. Now for the ladies, our herbal equivalent of horny goatweed is Damiana. This increases the circulation to the mucous membranes and all the stuff in the skin, which of course has certain added effects that are beneficial to the process I'm not going to get into more detailed language than that because I'm trying not to make this a age-restricted episode. Our equivalent of ginseng, you may have heard of it, is wild yam root. Now, the thing about wild yam root is that it's often sold as part of a tea or to be taken internally, and this is not effective. This is a progesterone increaser, so it's good for it's not for estrogen. If menopausal women often take hormone therapy, usually that's based in estrogen in order to try to balance hormones. I'm premenopausal, so I'm aware of these situations, but it's usually the progesterone, or often, I won't say usually, often, the progesterone balance that's the problem, not the estrogen balance, particularly when it comes to interest in sex. So, what you want to do with this is you want to get a cream that is applied externally, and it only takes a little bit, but they do tend to be rather expensive. Damiana can be taken in a tea, or it can be taken as a tincture. How I made this was 1 tablespoon of Damiana leaf in a small bottle of red wine. You can also use brandy. You can also use, you could use vodka if you really want to. You leave it overnight, then you strain out the herb, and you can use the tincture. I have used this in sex magic in the past. You can use it men too, but I found that my male partner was more likely to overheat when we were using this, so you may just want to stick with using this for the ladies. Now we'll move on to general euphorics. Euphorics make you feel good. Lavender oil is an extremely mild euphoric. Chocolate is probably the best known euphoric that we have, so that may be a thing in your work too. I think it's something like 50% of people respond to chocolate in that way, and half of us don't, so effects may vary. Now these ones, this is something you may have heard of before. It's called galangal root. See, it's a very hard root. These are very large pieces that I happen to have, but you can get it ground down in smaller pieces like the stuff that's at the bottom here. It's used a lot in Asian cooking, particularly Thai cooking. It has a spicier, more peppery flavor like ginger, and I believe it's related, so if you have a ginger allergy, you will not want to be using it. What you do is you make an infusion of that, which is to say that you put a small amount of it, maybe, a piece like that in a bottle about, as wide as this, long as the screen is wide, right? And this is being filmed on my phone, if that gives you an idea. And you shake it up, put it in a dark place for a week, shake it up every day if you can to make sure that it's extracting more of the volatile oils out of the herb. You can leave it as long as a month if you want a specially concentrated amount, and then you apply it topically to the skin. A little bit goes a long way. Put a couple dabs at your temple, put, maybe a dab at your wrists here, that kind of thing, and you'll find it very effective. Galangal root is one of the operative ingredients in traditionally made oil of bromelain, which I make and is available at my Webstore. You can get this from magical supply places and herb stores, but you will save money if you go to your local Asian supermarket, where you can usually find it in bulk packages for much less. You can also find it fresh if you prefer. This is not ideal for making an infusion, but it is excellent for putting it in your food if you'd like to do it that way. The other mild euphoric I'd like to talk about is sweet woodruff. You may or may not have heard of this stuff. It's just a leafy plant. When it's growing, you may have seen it in people's gardens. It's got usually 5 leaves that come off of a central point, so it vaguely resembles a cannabis leaf for those who are interested in that. And it has white flowers that are small and somewhat resemble baby's breath. And its claim to fame in the magical community is that this is the operative ingredient in traditional Maywine. How you make Maywine is you take about a tablespoon of this stuff and you put it in your favorite, traditionally white wine, but I imagine any kind of wine can be used. About a bottle, right? You add sliced strawberries, traditionally, for flavor and color, and probably the sympathetic magic element. And you leave it for 3 days to a month, depending on how strong you want your concoction. Don't put the strawberries in until at maximum 3 days before, preferably the night before you're going to make use of it. And then when it's all said and done, you strain out the herbs and the fruit. Maybe you put a couple of whole strawberries in there for decoration. And you have Maywine. And Maywine is a relatively mild euphoric, but it does have a measurable effect. I have managed to get really stupid drunk on it before. Don't do that to yourself. But it can be a lot of fun. Now, the other question you might be asking is, where do I get this stuff? Most of the items I have mentioned will be available at your local herbal store or natural healing places. However, some of it you will probably have to order online. I recommend these 2 companies. This is Azure Green. You may have heard of them before, and this is Soma Luna. They have excellent magical supplies. Their prices tend to be pretty reasonable. I've had very little problems with the shipping. And no, this is not a paid endorsement. This is just my own experience talking. If I have not said otherwise, standard dosage for any of the teas that I have mentioned are 1 teaspoon per teacup, or 1 tablespoon per teapot. Pour the water, make sure it's actually boiling to release the herbs and their volatile oils. Leave for, about 5 minutes to steep. Make sure it's covered when you're steeping it so you don't evaporate the volatile oils into the air. And generally you can add honey to taste if you find that the herb itself is bitter. I understand that the horny goatweed in particular is kind of nasty tasting. So yeah, and that's what I have to offer about aphrodisiacs that actually work. You're welcome.
Okay, so Lilith, what have you got for us today?
All right, we are going to do a devotional candle for Oshun. Now, in a lot of the various African traditional religions, Oshun is the Orisha of love. She's in Cuban Santeria, she's revered. In Ifa, she's revered. In Candomblé, in New Orleans Voodoo, we honor her. So most often she's honored, there's a picture on the candle, and most often she's honored by the Catholic image of Our Lady of Charity, Caridad del Cobre. And it usually, it's not just a generic Virgin Mary. You can see she's got like the little baby, and then she's got this boat. For some reason, all these guys in this boat are said to be named Juan, which I think is just hilarious. Like the 3 wands. They're supposed to be the 3 wands that travel around with
funny.
her.
I wonder where that came from. That's
I have no idea, because, this is an oral tradition mostly. So, sometimes you don't ever really find out the origins of things. And I'm sure everybody has a theory about the wands, but nobody's really sure how the wands got started. So, but, I think a lot of the Catholic imagery came into effect because people really didn't have access to more Africanized images, and it was easier to sort of have a cover over what they were doing. You know, if somebody else saw it, they could just pretend that that's what it was. And then in a lot of people, even that I know today, they practice both. They practice both things simultaneously, you know, and they really honor those things just as forces in the universe, and also really blessed energies that we can welcome into our life. So what we're going to do today is a devotional candle for Oshun. Now, if you're not initiated, I always remind people that, you know, we're not demanding things from the Orisha. No, 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 no. We're just sort of welcoming their presence into our lives, asking them to sort of, you know, bless us with whatever they choose to bless us with, whatever's really best for us. And I think, you know, I can't talk about love magic without talking about ethics. And, you know, a lot of times I think people get hung up on, you know, love magic is all about making somebody do this or that. And for me, love magic is all about bringing the best love for you to you, you know, so that's what it is. If there are obstacles that are unnecessary that are in the way, then let's remove those. If there's things that'll help me, you know, the same way you're talking about the aphrodisiacs, the same way that eating things that's good for my sexual organs will help me have better sex. Well, that makes sense. So surrounding yourself with the kinds of herbs and oils and things that will raise your vibration on a loving level, not just, you know, love with other people, self-love too. So we're going to put this stuff together. You know, you can get this candle, or you could just get a yellow candle. That would work as well. We're going to inscribe it with what I call, well, in Santeria and Lukumi, we don't have veves, which are pretty much something that's unique to New Orleans voodoo and Haitian voodoo. And they're sort of symbols, sigils, if you will, that people use to honor and, you know, leave offerings on. You know, sometimes we do them in cornmeal on the ground and we dance on them. But I think they work really well when you're doing this kind of candle magic, because you can inscribe them on the candle. Behind me, you can see the panto for Oshun on the Oshun flag for our spiritual house that we have. And you, it's hard to tell because the sequins are shiny, but there's 5 lines, and it also comes with 5 stars, and then we have 5 hearts in it as well, because her ritual number is 5. So what I've done is inscribed that symbol on the top of my candle. I'm using a porcupine quill. I think it's really nice to have something natural when you're inscribing sigils or veves or pantos on your work, because it's like, it just brings you closer to nature. And at its heart, all of these religions are nature-based traditions. So I like to use that. If you don't have a porcupine quill, you can get a toothpick. A wooden toothpick would work. I would try not to use something plastic, because, you know, you're polluting the earth, and it's something that's, you know, fake and chemical, and we don't want to use that in our magics. So you're going to put that on the top of the candle, and then we're going to add some of the ritual things for Oshun. Now, there's an Oshun oil that's in my Love Magic book that people can use, or you can get one from your local botanica, or you could get one from your local magical practitioner. But we're going to put one together today for ourselves, and I'm going to tell you what those ingredients are. The first thing you're going to add is a pinch of cinnamon, because she loves cinnamon. It's funny that all of those aphrodisiac herbs and spices that are in pumpkin pie spice that make us feel all, you know, happy down there, those are the ones that are also used for Oshun. So I use cinnamon. You know, you just want to use a little bit, because sometimes it can be, you know, harsh when it's burning. I'm also going to use, I mentioned I'm a New Orleans voodoo priestess, so I'm going to use some chicory coffee. That'll sort of wake up our spell. It'll sort of protect it from any other energies that are out there. You know, I'm assuming you've done your protection magic already before you started this particular spell, but we're just going to add a little bit of activation through that. We're going to add some rose petals. I have dried rose petals here. You know, I make them myself. It's much cheaper than if you get them from the store. So, you know, get yourself some fresh roses, enjoy that, and then make your dried rose petals. And we're going to put that on there. So that's 3 ingredients that we have going so far. And then we're going to add 2 more. We're going to add amber oil, because Oshun loves amber. And I'm going to add at least 3 drops of this. You could do up to 5 depending on how big your candle was, but I don't want to add too much stuff, because you don't want to interfere with the burning of the candle in general. because if your candle gets all clogged up with I've seen a lot of amateurs making a lot of candles that were, full of stuff, and it's not going to burn right. And if it doesn't burn right, that's going to interfere with your magic. And the other oil I'm going to add is orange blossom oil, which is one of Oshun's favorites. She loves oranges. So she especially loves orange blossoms and just that wonderful sweet scent. And what we're going to do to activate it is I love this blessing. It's a blessing from my priest, Louis Martinet of the New Orleans Voodoo Spiritual Temple. He does an equal armed cross with the candle or whatever it is he's blessing, and then he throws it up into the air to release it into the world of the invisibles or the world of the Loa or the spirits. And I like that because it really illustrates that there's a partnership between what you're doing with your hands and what the divine is coming to help you with their energy, their ashe, their hands, for lack of a better word. So that's all you need to do to get it ready. You're going to light it. I usually tell people, since it's a love spell, you want to light it at night. I wouldn't leave it unattended. Don't leave a burning candle unattended. But I would light it every night for as long as you feel comfortable with. If it's just a half hour, sit there, meditate, think about good things coming towards you, the love that you want to have coming to your life, and what it really is that you need and what's holding you back. And you're going to do that until the candle burns out. All right, and there we go.
That's really beautiful. Thank you very much. I have a couple of minor questions.
Sure.
That my show, right, I do this primarily for witches. So you say natural materials. A witch normally uses their boline or white-handled knife to do things like carve candles. I assume in this case that's not appropriate because it's not a natural material, right?
No, and it's funny because we do use, I've danced with ritual machetes that were on fire and things like that. So we do use ritual blades in New Orleans voodoo and other African traditional religions, but we don't, especially not if you're doing a love thing, you would not use that because that's going to bring a much different kind of energy to the working than what you're really looking for.
Yeah, fair enough. I think it's very important to keep in mind the powers that you're working with. So you need to communicate with them in their language, right? So obviously, thank you. That's a good point. And so take note of that. Maybe something like a goose feather quill might work.
Yeah, that would work well.
Okay, cool. Right. And there was another question I was going to ask, and I forgot what it was. I know, useful, huh? Let's see. We'll be cutting this section. No, but no, actually, I think that's right. I was going to ask, but then you answered it. So
great.
Thanks, Lilith. I'm so glad you were here to do this. And if you guys haven't already, please check out her channel or our Witchcraft and Voodoo series or her excellent book, Love Magick, which is available anywhere books are sold.
Thank you so much.
You can get many of the products that I've mentioned in this episode, including Damiana and Ginseng Tincture, Aphrodisiac Oil Blends, and Wild Yam Topical Cream at my Webstore. You can also get a Mandragora Sex Magic Ointment there if you like. And don't forget to check out Lilith's website, channel, or excellent book. Thanks for joining us. Merry Beat.
Thank you.